Let's be honest, if Luffy ended up in the Dragon Ball universe, what would happen? Would he get crushed by some random guy from the Tournament of Power? Or could Straw Hat actually surprise everyone, and even go head-to-head with characters who fire Kamehamehas that destroy planets? Every fan has asked this question at least once, but today we'll approach it differently. No more baseless what-ifs. Let's analyze how far Luffy, with everything he has today, Gear 5, Haki, all his latest abilities, could get in the world of Dragon Ball. It's not about who's more famous, it's not about who yells louder, it's a fair comparison taking into account the powers, the scales, the limits, and even the fighting style of each universe. And I'll tell you right now, the current Luffy is a monster, but the Dragon Ball universe usually doesn't forgive. I have a series on this channel featuring characters like Naruto, Saitama, Gojo, Sukuna, and Invincible. Episodes may or may not include fights. So is the One Piece universe weak, or is it one of the most powerful? So get comfortable, because in this video, we're going to find out how far Luffy could realistically go in the Dragon Ball universe. To give context and introduce Luffy into the Dragon Ball universe and place him in the story of the Saiyajin warriors, we need to combine the stories. Luffy was born on Dawn Island in East Blue, a simple place, but one that produced some huge names. He is the son of none other than Monkey D. Dragon, the most wanted criminal in the world, and the grandson of Vice Admiral Garp, a living legend of the Navy. In other words, the boy was born right in the middle of the crossfire between justice and rebellion. But instead of following in his father's or grandfather's footsteps, Luffy chose his own path and became a pirate. Since he was a child, his idol was always Shanks, yes, the red-haired one himself. He was the one who showed Luffy what true freedom is. He also saved the boy from a sea king, losing his arm in the process. And of course, it was thanks to Shanks that Luffy ate that devil fruit which gave him that elastic body. But then the story became a legend. Luffy formed the Straw Hats, faced the Navy, the world government, the Yonkou, and did all of this with a single goal: to find the legendary One Piece and become the king of the pirates. But what a lot of people don't realize is the level of evolution this character has had since the very beginning, from the kid who got beaten up by Barami to the monster who faced Kaido head-on with Gear 5. Luffy has become one of the most dangerous and creative characters in shonen fiction. We're going to have some fun today with the most current and insane version of Luffy. So the question now is all this power enough for him to make any impact in the Dragon Ball universe? To compare this, we must analyze techniques, power levels, resistances, speeds, and hacks from each side. Spoiler alert, there are surprises that not even the most hardcore Dragon Ball fans expected. Throughout his pirate journey, Luffy faced numerous encounters. Unlikely allies, insane rivals, ridiculously powerful enemies, and of course, several other devil fruit users who crossed his path in pursuit of the same goal. Total freedom, the true treasure behind the One Piece. That's the most straightforward summary you can make of Luffy's story in the world of One Piece. But if you've never really dived into this universe, I highly recommend it. Whether you're reading the manga or taking on the anime with over 1,000 episodes. If you begin now, you might catch up by year's end. Be warned, it's addictive and improves over time. Now that we've already mentioned the character, I need to make a course correction here that a lot of people tend to forget. Haki is one of Luffy's greatest strengths, and you can't talk about his power without paying attention to that. In One Piece, Haki is basically the series' answer to the classic spiritual power that every shonen has. Dragon Ball has Kai, Naruto has chakra, Jujutsu Kaisen has cursed energy, Bleach has spiritual pressure, Hunter x Hunter has Nen, and in One Piece it's called Haki, but with a unique twist. What makes Haki so interesting is that it's not just a generic energy used in any way. It's divided into 3 types, and each character represents a specific way of mastering the environment, others, and even themselves. The first type is Observation Haki, which works almost like a sixth sense. With it, Luffy can sense intentions, strengths, emotions, and even predict the enemy's movements fractions of a second in advance. It's as if time briefly slows down in his mind during an intense fight. In the Dragon Ball world, this would be a significant advantage in many battles, especially against characters who rely more on raw power than accuracy. But Observation Haki is just the start. There's also Armament Haki, which is even simpler. It covers the user's body with an invisible energy, or sometimes black depending on the level. It's like a spiritual armor. This works for both defense and attack, and best of all, it allows you to hit the real body of Devil Fruit users who would normally be intangible or resistant. Basically, it's like Luffy coats his fists with a layer of raw power to throw punches that can even go through Logias or extremely tough characters. And in the more advanced versions that Luffy masters, he doesn't even need to touch the opponent. He can hit them with a kind of internal impact, as if the damage goes straight to their organs. But the rarest and most overpowered Haki is Conqueror's Haki, also known as King's Haki. This one is for very few, really. It's a power that comes from pure willpower. The user releases this presence with such intensity that it can literally make weaker enemies faint just by being nearby. And when two users of this Haki clash, the sky literally splits apart. Luffy not only has all three types, but also masters advanced versions of each. This makes him one of the most versatile and dangerous characters in the shonen world. But Haki isn't everything. Actually, what really made Luffy famous were his transformations, or rather, the gears. It all started with the Akuma no Mi he ate when he was a child. The fruit gave his body the properties of rubber, which already allowed for a lot of creativity, elastic attacks, incredible resilience, and immunity to common physical damage. Throughout the series, Luffy evolved his power with the known forms: Gear 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, or Gear 5. Let's quickly review the basics before the important part. Gear 2nd is essentially a body turbo boost. Luffy speeds up his blood flow to the point where it looks like he's boiling. He gains more speed, more strength, and a lot more aggressiveness. Visually, it really resembles Goku's Kaioken, with the body glowing, steam coming out, and an aura of pure intensity. It raises the question, did One Piece take inspiration from Dragon Ball for this? Now, Gear 3rd, which is a bit clumsier. With this form, Luffy inflates parts of his body, usually his arms or legs, until they're the size of a building. This gives him absurd brute strength and a huge reach with his attacks, but it comes at a cost. He gets slower and loses mobility. The Ultra Super Saiyajin transformations follow the classic dilemma: increased strength but decreased speed. Like when Trunks bulked up against Cell. But the true transformation leap is with Gear 4th. That's when Luffy really starts to look like a Dragon Ball character. In Gear 4th, he combines armament Haki with his rubber body and inflates his muscles, creating a visually imposing form, almost like a fusion between elasticity and spiritual armor. The result? Increased strength, speed, and endurance all in one. But the craziest thing is that Gear 4th has 3 variations, and each one is tailor-made for different combat situations. The first is Bound Man, which has become the standard form of Gear 4th. It balances strength, defense, and mobility, and allows Luffy to bounce around the battlefield like a living cannonball. The form is intimidating at first glance. Tank Man prioritizes defense above all else. In this version, Luffy enlarges his body further, increasing his weight and durability. It's perfect for tiring out tough opponents. He essentially turns into a rubber wall. And finally, we have Snake Man, which is focused on speed and unpredictability. The attacks become thinner, faster, and change direction midway, making it much harder for the enemy to dodge. It's the perfect form to deal with agile opponents or those who can easily read attacks. With these 3 forms, Luffy already shows a level of tactical versatility that few characters have, even within Dragon Ball. But none of that compares to what's coming next, because his last form changes everything. If you've been alive lately and follow anime, you've already heard about Gear 5. What you might not have stopped to think about yet is the conceptual absurdity that this transformation represents. Luffy, who was just a rubber pirate with creative attacks, basically kicked logic in the face and said, "Now my imagination is in charge." Gear 5 enables him to manipulate reality like a cartoon character. This is not a metaphor. The ground turns elastic, buildings twist like jelly, even the enemy's attacks join in the fun as if Luffy were the director of the episode. It's like he got the script in his hands. A lot of people compare it to Goku turning Super Saiyajin for the first time. I understand your feeling, but the approach differs. The Super Saiyajin is the scream of rage, the moment the protagonist explodes inside. Gear 5 embodies the laughter of chaos, as the protagonist breaks free from rules, common sense, and even gravity itself. And of course, there will always be people saying, "Oh, but he's copying Goku." Oh, but he became the Monkey King too, and yes, both of them have roots in Sun Wukong. The Chinese legend inspired many Eastern fiction protagonists, but claiming one copied the other is just seeking unnecessary conflict. You can love both Super Saiyajin and Gear 5 simultaneously without any issues. It's perfectly fine to appreciate both. Fighting over anime online is ridiculous. But what does this imply in a battle against Dragon Ball characters? Things get much more complex here, my friend. Have you ever imagined someone trying to punch Luffy and their hand sinks into the ground, which turned into a spring? Or Luffy laughing while taking a hit that stretches him like an accordion, and then he flies back with a spinning elastic punch? Gear 5 isn't just a fighting form. It's poetic license with punches and funny faces. And if you think this can't affect the Dragon Ball universe, Just wait until we get to the real comparisons. With Gear 5, Luffy entered a territory that few protagonists can reach, the realm of creative unpredictability. He doesn't fight like an ordinary character. Now, he distorts the battlefield as if he's editing the setting in real time. He transforms clouds, lightning, water, stone, and his enemies into rubber. It's as if the world around him turns into modeling clay and he's the sculptor, ready to improvise the next scene. But is reality being manipulated? Did Luffy become a god? A Toon Force breaking the fourth wall? Not exactly. Let's keep our feet on the ground. Gear 5 is an insanely powerful form within the logic of One Piece. But no, he's not rewriting universal laws or redesigning physics like he's Zeno-sama with a sense of humor. Luffy is stronger than ever. More creative, more versatile, more free, but still limited by his energy, stamina, and yes, by the logic of his own world. Before the latest One Piece arc, Luffy's power level was likely insufficient to survive the early Saiyajin saga of Dragon Ball Z. Many likened him to Raditz, Goku's problematic brother, and that was a difficult fight. But with everything we've seen today, advanced Haki, Gear 5, elastic speed, unpredictable strength, I can safely say that Luffy would beat Raditz. It wouldn't be easy because they're characters from completely different universes with totally different abilities, but I believe he would win. Gear 5's creativity enables attacks Raditz hasn't encountered. Prediction with observation Haki, internal impact with armament Haki, conqueror's Haki pressure. Today's Luffy has real tools to go head-to-head. But Nappa, for example, would be much more difficult. Because in Dragon Ball, Nappa has more than double Raditz's power. Doubling the power isn't literally doubling the strength. It's a much bigger increase than that. Nappa, for example, isn't just muscle. He's an elite Saiyajin, destroyed an entire city with one finger, and gave Goku and company nightmares at a time when everyone was already way above the normal level. And as we've analyzed in other videos, and I won't talk too much about it so it doesn't sound redundant, practically all the characters there were planetary level, except maybe Chaozu and some weaker characters. Luffy could even surprise for a while with the unpredictability of Gear 5, but Dragon Ball is a universe where the power scale is insane, and the problem wasn't just Nappa. If Luffy got past Nappa, the Vegeta from the Saiyajin saga would finish Luffy off in any way possible. But if you're optimistic and say that Luffy could take on base Vegeta, he would still have to deal with the Uzuru, the giant ape form that multiplies Vegeta's power by 10. Luffy doesn't have the energy to destroy moons, and he can't cut off the giant ape's tail, because remember, Yajirobe is extremely powerful. You can see this in the video I made about whether Zoro could go toe-to-toe with the swordsman from Dragon Ball, where I compare Zoro to Yajirobe. Yajirobe's fighting power is incredibly higher than people believe, to an absurd degree. Although he can't use Kai, his fighting power is sufficient to destroy small planets, similar to how Vegeta used to. Vegeta could easily defeat Luffy with just his fingers. Earth is a small planet in Dragon Ball in the real world, and Vegeta moves at an absurd speed. Even if Luffy had high abilities, it's a completely different level. In Dragon Ball, when one character is much more powerful than another, the weaker one can't cause damage, like when Vegeta God hits Broly or Kuririn hits Cell. From Vegeta upwards, Luffy likely wouldn't be able to damage them, to anyone. After all, from that point on, having the power to destroy a planet is pretty much a minimum requirement to take part in the story. Like many shonen characters, he remains stuck at that point in the Dragon Ball story. But now, with honor, justice, and an arsenal that finally gives him a chance. That's my analysis. Now I want yours. Comment below on who you'd like to see next, and don't forget to like the video. It's really important. Subscribe and turn on notifications for upcoming videos comparing universes, scales, and characters in a unique way. Thanks for watching. See you next time. I'm out.